D&D 3.5 has had a variety of books across the years, ranging from rulebooks, monster manuals, campaign settings, lore books, pantheons, and some really weird ones. 3.5 was the first edition I truly got into and read a book in. Well, a lot actually. For me, and especially as a 12-year-old, it was everything at the time. 3.0 and 3.5 had a lot of peculiar and very interesting books. However, there is one book that I spent the most time reading up on and theory crafting from. A book that apparently a lot of people say that was kinda underwhelming. I'm talking about Weapons of Legacy, and one of my favorite D&D books. A book that essentially changes how some people would have to perceive items. A weapon, piece of clothing, armor could potentially have a legacy behind it. And those items, if you met the criteria for them, they would basically evolve and unlock their full potential. Now, a lot of the items, as people have said, were kinda underwhelming due to their power level not being the best. However, Weapons of Legacy didn't just have a table of named items. Depending on the legacy item and how big of a legacy it had, which translates up to what character level the item would grow up to, you would have to sacrifice a feat to get the appropriate legacy feat. Other than that, you would also have to understand in some way that the generic-looking longsword, for example, is more than meets the eye. There is a history linked to that weapon, and finding and learning of the item's legacy would give you a hint as to how to unlock its legacy and acquire it yourself. But Zay, you said that these items, for the most part, were underwhelming. Why would you sacrifice so much for these? This book had pages and pages of rulings of how to create your own legacy items, and this is what this all is about. Homebrew stuff are everywhere, and there is some really good homebrew content out there. This was essentially that. I remember being in middle school, me and a friend would spend the entire day between classes, each crafting items, requirements, legacies, and show each other on lunch break. I cannot stress enough how awesome this book was. True, people were underwhelmed from the content, but again, the book allowed me to make a set of 4 named items that would amplify each other when worn together. Basically, a set item, when you would unlock the legacy of one and they would amplify each other. That would eventually create the most edgy, overpowered player character in existence. In the eyes of a 12-year-old, that is. Me and that buddy of mine used to theorycraft like crazy, like, how can you even beat a hackathon hero solo at level 8? And is it possible? By the way, yeah, it is. You just need a Scion class and 2 buffs, and it basically just kills itself. But my point is, this was the perfect book to theorycraft and create awesome items. You don't have to create the most overpowered item. I guarantee you throwing an item or two like this in your campaign and giving small hints here and there that there might be more than meets the eye, it will add a lot of good flavor. If anything, as a DM that creates way too many side things and options that are left uncovered, what is 1 or 2 more stuff? D&D 3.5 had a lot of classes and prestige classes. It had a lot of useless classes, books, feats, spells, skill tricks, and content that didn't have any real value. But it had so much bloody flavor that I just can't help but miss.